Hello, and welcome to Walk to Cinema podcast, where we walk to cinema so we can talk to cinema. And this week we have Hugo, which is actually a suggestion from Nothing Revealed on Letterboxd. I think he also goes by Paradise Valley on YouTube and Reddit, and we'll link him, whatever's possible.
Yeah.
So we see you guys. I think we're ignoring your suggestions.
Yes, we just.
This one's actually not on the list, but it's on the comments for the list because he listed a lot of them.
Yeah, and we had to get through the Oscars, so.
Yeah, we had to go through the Oscars, so.
But yeah, Hugo. It takes place in Paris, in the 1930s, and
yeah, we did 2 movies in a row that take place in Paris.
Yeah, wasn't on purpose, but here we are.
Yeah, it takes place in Paris, the 30s. Early talkies.
Yeah, and really this movie is kind of about filmmaking, but also through the lens of like a kind of an adventure for a child.
Yeah, it's a family fantasy. It's kind of about the magic of filmmaking, and more than just filmmaking too, just making in general, being creative.
Yeah, especially because the one of the whole points about the story, or how Hugo kind of gets involved with George Méliès, is his father dies, and they were working on this kind of like automatron type thing, or like the Metal Man, and
yes,
he thinks that if he fixes it, it'll be a message from his father, basically.
Yeah, but he ends up being the poster to Trip to the Moon.
Yeah,
right?
Which he takes as a sign from his dad, because his dad was telling him about one of the first movies he ever saw and how magical it was, because it was about a rocket ship that took people to the moon, and it crashed into the moon.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like
that's some crazy stuff to see in the 1910s when you're a little boy.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even the 1910s. It's earlier than that.
Yeah, it was like I think it came out in like 1901.
Yeah, so that's some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
It was long too for the time. It was almost 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you had just a few years prior, the longest thing were just a couple seconds,
Yeah.
Like the train one. They do talk about that one in the film as well, and how
they go through a lot of his movies, and I think that's my favorite part about the movies, when we found out that George Méliès is who he is, and they kind of like flash back to when he was a movie maker.
Yeah.
Because during the setting of the film, he's not doing movies anymore. He works at the train station where this orphan boy lives, pretty much.
Yeah.
So the flashbacks are incredible. That's my favorite part by far.
I agree. I think that's the part that makes the movie, to be honest.
It's just seeing how they made these spectacular films back in the olden days with, like, there's no CGI, there's no computers, period. So the effects they use and how cool it looked, the old sets, they were more like theater sets. They were really cool.
Yeah. And how he had to
really cool to see.
Cut the film to piece it together in order to create some of the effects that he wanted. That's really cool.
This is Martin Scorsese's love letter, I guess. We say that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is Quentin Tarantino's love letter. Yeah. Because he's in love with the 60s and the 70s of Hollywood. I think Martin Scorsese is just in love with filmmaking in general.
Yeah. Before watching this movie, I was definitely very confused as to why Martin Scorsese wanted to make this movie, because
it's a children's movie based on a book. It's a weird decision. Yeah.
Based on a book. I've seen the book. I never read it, but I know it was mostly like a picture type book, or it had a lot of drawings and stuff in it. And I couldn't for the life of me think why he would do this.
It doesn't even look like a Scorsese movie. I think the marketing is so awful looking to me.
Yeah.
Personally.
I remember when this movie came out back in like 2000, 2008, something like that.
It was 2011, yeah.
Yeah. I remember watching the trailer and being like, this looks awful. And
it does look awful.
it honestly doesn't even promotional material for it doesn't even look like what the movie end product is, because the promotional material,
I think they really messed that up.
yeah, the promotional material actually kind of makes it look like a fantasy, like there's like a fantasy.
I mean, it is a fantasy, but this makes it look like it's like supernatural. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like a supernatural, that's what I mean, like there's something outside of the of the realm, I guess, of reality.
Because it's a little boy hanging from a giant clock, and it doesn't look like it's on Earth, kind of.
Yeah, and there's
the marketing was really bad, and I think it's a real weird choice by Scorsese, but it worked for me. So we're talking really bad about it, but it worked.
That's my thing. I don't think it's not the perfect movie, but it is.
No.
It's interesting, and then there's there's always, since this is a children's movie, there is like a villain like character that is purely just
over the top comedic,
yeah, which is played by
Sacha Baron
Cohen, yeah, and
she does a good job at it. I think he's probably the best one in this. Maybe Ben Kingsley.
Yeah,
both of the kids are fine. Chloe Grace Moretz wasn't great, but she was very, very young, so what are you gonna do?
Young. But yeah, they I mean, this is kind of, I wouldn't say it's completely like a biography, right? Because it does take some leeways with like introducing people that didn't actually exist and all that stuff, but it does still kind of follow the life of George Méliès after he made movies. And he
kind of hated, he didn't hate what he made, he just hated the legacy of what he made, because people moved on to the talkies and no one cared about the old stuff anymore.
Yeah.
At the time, that was already 30 years old, the stuff he made.
Yeah, and which is crazy to think about now that you say it out loud, but like...
Yeah, now it's 120 years old.
Yeah, but he mentions in the movie about how he had to sell his reels and all this other stuff to make
film
money.
Was very expensive.
Yeah, and it didn't even go back into filmmaking. It went into making what was it? Something about shoes. Yeah.
Something in the shoes.
Yeah. And that was true.
Yeah, and it kind of destroyed him emotionally from what the movie portrays. Yeah, he didn't even want to talk about movies or hear about movies or anything like that. He wanted to distance himself from that and just become someone else. Yeah,
because I mean, I can't imagine creating something that was so passionate to you, and you created like an entire library. He made like, what was it, 800 films?
I don't know. I think everyone knows that there's so much lost stuff.
Yeah.
But the stuff that does exist, there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Oh, for sure.
And A Trip to the Moon is like, how is it a popular movie?
Oh, I agree. I think pretty much everybody, has seen it. If they're interested in movies, have seen it at least once, or interested in any type of creative.
It's one of the movies you learn. Like you learn that movie. If you go into movie making, movie learning, anything of the sort, you learn Trip to the Moon pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
It establishes the beginning of creative filmmaking.
Yeah.
Filmmaking for a while was not even documentary. It was more just, let's film this cat to study its movements, or there was a lot to study movements, to study perspective, more than it was about making a story. And George Méliès is one of the first to really make that important in movie making.
Yeah. I remember watching it for the first time. I was in middle school. It was my middle school drama class that we watched it. And I think my teacher said it was the first movie with a plot line to ever be made, at least, which I don't think is true, but
I don't know if it's true. I'm trying to think on the top of my mind, but I think there was plot lines, but nothing this long. This is a long one.
It's a long one.
It's almost 20 minutes.
It's a sci-fi, like...
Yeah, it's a sci-fi. It's a sci-fi kind of horror at the end. You kind of gets attacked by devils, little things.
Yeah, they're not Martians. I don't know what you
Moon
would
Man.
call moon men. But yeah, like
I think the
we
problem with the movie is that it focuses more on Hugo and his trajectory as an orphan.
yeah, and trying to find himself as
Yeah,
trying to
if it's
reconnect with his
all
dad.
about movie making, I'd love this.
Yeah, exactly. That's like the part that is kind of I don't know what to think of this movie because the parts that I love, you know?
Yeah,
I love how they recreated some of the scenes, like some of him making the movies, in his studio and stuff.
yeah,
Because that just looks
that
so
was
fun.
towards the third act though. And that was amazing. The rest of it was kind of just passable, I guess.
Yeah.
It's still Scorsese, so you're not going to take anything too awful out of this.
No, nothing was awful. It's just kind of like everything else is kind of like, I
It's
don't care.
passable. It's
Yeah.
predictable, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's not predictable at the end. It ends up being pretty, adventurous in the way that it goes about twisting the tale, I guess.
Yeah. There's also a character that is studying filmmaking or at least writing the
Yeah,
history.
trying to discover old prints. And
Yeah, and he thinks that Méliès is dead because he disappeared after World War One, along with pretty much any copy of his film. And Hugo and Méliès's goddaughter are like, no, he's alive, and he shows them
I
the.
think this guy actually has a very rare print. Yeah, that's what you're gonna say. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was just gonna say that he shows them, the print of one of the movies. I don't remember which one. It wasn't a trip to the moon. But yeah, just like I can't imagine like the excitement I would feel at that time, I guess, like seeing something like that. And I don't know if it's, hindsight's always 2020, 2020. So looking at it now and knowing how impactful Méliès was to movie making in general, I would say people.
There's a problem with early movie making. The same way there's a problem with pretty much early everything, where no one takes it seriously enough to keep archives of it.
Yeah.
So old movies get lost because no one really cared to keep them around because it didn't think it was going to be the establishment it is. It was more of a trend for a while.
Yeah. I mean, they talk about that in the movie too, about the Lumiere brothers.
Yeah, the Lumiere brothers were also pioneers of this.
Where they're the ones that did the train movie that I feel like everybody has seen.
Yeah, it's a very spooky movie.
It's like 2 seconds, but the train's coming right at you. And
yeah, it's crazy.
They made that, and they said that they didn't think filmmaking was going to be anything sustainable. They were like, "Oh, this is just a passing fad,"
Yeah, it was just entertainment, something to do.
Yeah, I think it's crazy because if you're in the 1800s, at the end of the 1800s, when this was a brand new thing, how could you not like think that there'd be so much more possibility to it? You could create something and that was moving in real time and show it to somebody else when you hadn't been able to do that before ever.
Yeah, but that kind of happened, I guess, recently with video games. No one really cared for the early video games, and others, this nostalgia and just wanting to know what was up. So people really want to play the early video games, and a lot of them are just insanely expensive.
Yeah, but even like, I would say that it's still different because video games, like I think, are just kind of an extension of what we created with filmmaking, I guess.
Oh, so you're saying they're like DIY movies?
Kind of. Kind of.
I love the story of Pac-Man.
No, but I'm saying like I don't think video games have the same newness as movies did in the 1800s,
You might offend a lot of people.
I'm okay with that. I like video games. Not
the home gamer girl.
I'm not a gamer girl.
Yeah,
But
our review of this is basically it's an hour and a half, and then we get to cool stuff.
yeah, kind of. It's very long. That's true. It's
Yeah, it's a little more than 2 hours, but yeah,
four.
it's kind of the end that's like super cool.
Yeah.
But
It's
the
just kind of
special effects in this are good all the way through.
yeah, it's just kind of surprising, I guess, since it is a kids movie that it is as long as it is, you
I
know.
don't know if it's a kids movie. It's more
Oh,
like
it's 100% a
watch
kids
it with your
movie.
parents movie.
I think it's a kids movie. It's
Well,
based
I
on a
think
children's
it's
novel.
yeah, but it's good enough where you can sit with your kids and watch it. And as an adult, you're not gonna,
That's
think it's too
that's true.
childish because it's not childish at all.
No, it's not very childish, and I mean,
Honestly, I think adults would enjoy this more than children,
maybe.
especially if you're into filmmaking. I guess it works as a children's story as well. The fantasy elements to it.
Yeah.
The sound is good all the way through. The music, I think, is pretty. It is that like dreamy type music. I don't
Yeah.
like the set design, really, or the costume design, or the cinematography. I think it's just, I don't know. I don't like the look of this movie.
Well, it did win
I
an Academy Award for Best Cinematography and Best Art Direction, along with the both of the sound awards and the visual effects.
well, I could still not like it.
I know. I'm just saying it.
I don't like it. It's really like gold, like a brownish gold tone,
Yeah.
or a bluish tone to all of it, and it's just not my thing. I really don't like that type of, I guess, filter that they play over the. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
It's visually boring to me.
yeah, and I think part of it that I don't particularly like about how it was shot is that it was shot in 3D. And I'm pretty sure that was part of the marketing ploy was to make it look more 3D. And then when you're watching it, it's not it's not as in your face as the marketing makes it out to be, but it's still
Now that you said that, I remember the opening shot is a very long tracking shot that goes through all the station. That one's really cool.
yeah.
That one was really, really cool, actually. Just, I guess that one in 3D would have worked. That goes like through people's stuff, and yeah, that shot's crazy. But it's fully digital.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just not a big fan of 3D in general. I used to be when I was a kid, but
Yeah, I guess it is. It's for kids.
growing up it's kind of not it's kind of I guess a novelty, you know.
Oh, my
That didn't really
Christmas wants
catch
to make a
on.
movie. Sorry, did I catch on?
No, 3D didn't catch on. I feel like every movie in like the late 2000s, like
They try to
2007,
revive 3D, and it like they don't really work.
yeah, it was all like 3D stuff. And then
They did 3D in the 40s, the 50s, and they did 3D in the 70s. They're like they try to go and do 3D, see if it works, and people care for like a little bit, and then it's over. But yeah, I was just saying that Scorsese, when he makes a film, he makes it for a purpose, and I feel like the purpose for this one is pretty obvious,
yeah, it is a love letter to filmmaking. It's a love
and
letter.
it is to educate younger crowd, or this unknowledgeable crowd about early filmmaking, and why he can do what he does is because people did it before him.
Yeah. He has these people to like thank, you know.
Yeah, we all do. Anyone that makes any type of film always has to thank the forefathers, the George Méliès and the Lumiere brothers, and all these people that made the early films that got us going,
Yeah.
and that showed us that we can make more with this art form.
Yeah. That's, you know, it's a little sad that we don't have all of his work and a lot of it got destroyed. But I think that there's still a effort in the film community to uncover more of his stuff in private collections and archives and
Yeah, the problem is these private collections are not very accessible
yeah.
because they don't really like to come out with it often, a lot of the collectors. And the archives are so huge sometimes.
Yeah.
And you just have unlabeled stuff that you gotta go through.
Yeah.
So it'll take a long time for us to get stuff out not just that old. There's stuff from the 70s that's still like pretty much lost. It exists, but it's just lost.
Yeah. Well, I gave the movie an 8 out of 10, which is kind of high, but I love the parts that I did like so much that I think it truly outshines the parts that I thought were either kind of boring or, childish or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was between a 7 and an 8, but the ending is what leaves the taste in your mouth when you finish a movie. And the ending was the best part, so I guess I'll go up and settle on the 8. Because, that's something you also learn in filmmaking, that you gotta have a good ending. It's not good enough to have a good movie. The ending needs to leave you thinking about more, and this one really does. The ending of Hugo, or the final acts in Hugo, really make fond memories, at least for me, of the movie. The rest is forgettable.
I agree.
And passable. But it's not like it's bad. At no point was I like over it. But at the end, it really just went into this next level of, I was not expecting this type of amazingness to come out.
Yeah.
But Scorsese pulled it off again.
He did. I was surprised as well because I didn't think I'd like it, but I did.
So yeah, thank you for listening to us.
Yes, thank you. If you want to like and subscribe, if you can, on the platform that you're listening to this on, go ahead. We love interaction. And we'll see you the next episode.